On August 8th, 2014, Five Nights at Freddy's was released to the public and 10 years later has become one of the most influential pieces of media on the internet. As most people know, the games have an absurd amount of lore and mystery surrounding it, so much so that there are 69 episodes of game theory on it as of recording. But of course, back then during its earlier years, there were plenty of questions that were unanswered, so as each game came out, more and more fan theories were thrown around and discussed within the community, some of them actually becoming true while some not so much. With how little information we had at the time, there were bound to be some ridiculous, silly, and generally out there theories, which is exactly what this iceberg entails. If you're watching this video, you should know what an iceberg chart is. But if for some reason you don't, here's a quick explanation. An iceberg chart is a list of information about a certain topic, separated by layers. The lower you go down the list, the more unknown and obscure the information becomes. This iceberg was created by Fzilla over on Reddit, and they take a slightly different approach to the layers of the iceberg. Instead, each layer represents the theories and their validity, with them becoming more debunked the further you go down, but I'll elaborate on them when we reach each layer. And finally, the extent of my knowledge regarding these entries are what I remember at the time and whatever I can find on Google, so I'll have a different amount of knowledge on each entry. Also, as many other iceberg chart explainers do, I'll have a graphic that represents my knowledge of a specific entry in the form of a flashlight meter. If I have full battery, that means I know exactly what I'm talking about and or done enough research of the entry that yielded some concrete information. If the battery is empty, that means I have no idea what the entry means or haven't gotten any answers from researching. With all that yapping out of the way, this is the full explanation of the Five Nights at Freddy's fan theories iceberg, starting with the first layer, as explained by Fzilla, are theories that have been confirmed to be canon, or theories with so much evidence that they have been widely accepted as canon. Starting off with William Afton / Purple Guy is Springtrap. This one is obvious. This was shown to us in the Night 5 minigame from FNAF 3, where Purple Guy, William Afton, tried to escape from the children's spirits by hiding in the Spring Bonnie suit, but it malfunctions and the spring locks snap shut, killing William and leaving him twitching and writhing on the floor. FNAF 2 is a prequel. Upon completing Night 5 of FNAF 2, you'd receive your check with the date of 1987, which was not only an important date that the phone guy told us in FNAF 1, but if you read the newspaper behind the check, it mentions that the new toy animatronics will be scrapped and the old ones will be kept for a possible reorganization of the company, aka FNAF 1. The Mangle committed the bite of 87. As I'll mention here and later, we don't definitively know who exactly did the bite of 87, but the community widely considers Mangle to be the most likely culprit, as their jump scare comes in from the top and straight for our head. Michael Afton is the older brother. As the entry says, Michael Afton is the older brother of the crying child, which brings us to the next entry. Evan is the real name of the crying child. Maybe. It's really messy because the name Evan came from the logbook through the Foxy Grid puzzle and was a character from the Fazbear Fright series of books with the same name who also had a brother named Michael. So while not confirmed, it is very plausible. Sister Location takes place before the first game. We don't know exactly when Sister Location takes place, but Handy Unit mentions,
due to the massive success and even more so the unfortunate closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, it was clear that the stage was set, no pun intended, for another contender in children's entertainment.
As well as the 1983 Easter egg in the secret room, which reveals the FNAF 4 bedroom. So it is safe to say Sister Location comes before FNAF 1 in the timeline. FNAF 4 is set in 1983. As I just said, FNAF 4 was shown in the Sister Location through the 1983 keypad secret, and a TV in-game shows the date 1983. Ultimate Custom Night is William's Hell. UCN was exactly as it says, an ultimate version of the original custom nights from the previous games, and whenever you die, some characters have voice lines that hint to who we are playing as. Golden Freddy killed the phone guy. Back in FNAF 1, at the end of Phone Guy's Night 4 phone call, we hear him say,
Yeah, I always wondered what was in all those empty heads back there. No. Oh no.
then immediately followed by Golden Freddy's jump scare sound. Now, was it actually Golden Freddy that killed him? We don't know. Mike Schmidt is Michael Afton. In the Springtrap cutscene from Sister Location, Michael tells his father William,
I'm going to come find you.
and the name tag on Handy Unit says Mike on it. And it was said during a Game Theory episode, I don't remember which one, but Michael Afton is theorized to be who you play as in FNAF 1. He just changed his name in the application process. It would also explain why the phrase "It's me" shows up whenever you encounter Golden Freddy, who we know contains the soul of the crying child, Michael's younger brother. Spring Bonnie was the suit used by Afton during the missing children's incident. This entry is exactly what it says. According to the newspaper clippings from FNAF 1, children went missing, and the suspect used a mascot costume to lure them, and we know William Afton uses his Spring Bonnie suit to commit his murders. Alternate timelines across the novels. Scott Cawthon confirmed on its Steam discussion post that the books follow a separate continuity from the games. The books are considered canon, but not directly canon to the games. And that is the end of the first layer, which brings us to Layer 2 is described as theories that originated from 2015 to present day. Although a majority of these were debunked, some have still remained unconfirmed or ambiguous. Dream theory. Now, this was a popular and pretty controversial theory being discussed around the community. The dream theory is the possibility that the games of FNAF 1, 2, 3, and some of 4 was all a dream, with the main piece of evidence being that the crying child in FNAF 4 comes in contact with plush versions of the main 4 and seeing the toy animatronics as actual toys, and many, many more small details. It was a pretty well-rounded theory with a lot of evidence back then, but with all the information we have now, yeah, this was debunked. Mike Trap and Mike Victim. These I'll do pretty quickly, because it was Michael talking in the Sister Location cutscene, and then Springtrap appeared, people assumed it to be him, and for a bit people believed Michael was the crying child because the spirit of Cassidy was talking to him through the logbook, which was later confirmed that Cassidy was talking to the actual crying child, which wasn't Michael. Ultimate Custom Night is Mike's Purgatory. Now, I have never heard this theory, and from the research I did, the only evidence that makes sense is that Pigpatch had a scrapped voice line that mentioned that our character thinks we're still a security guard. This one is pretty shaky. Purple Guy was innocent.
No!
Michael Afton is the protagonist of all games from FNAF 1 to Ultimate Custom Night. Related to the entry from earlier, this theory states that Michael is the protagonist of all the mainline games up until Ultimate Custom Night. FNAF 1 and 3? Possibly. Sister Location? Absolutely. But all the others? Not so much. Adult theory. Oh boy. So, before Sister Location released, the adult theory was the theory that the setting and the animatronics were meant to be more oriented towards adults. Of course, the actual release of the game debunked this to the ground. Even Scott himself caught wind of the theory, which he mentioned in his 2018 interview with Dawko. Sister Location takes place in an underground post-apocalyptic bunker. Yeah, the most I could find about this was a single Reddit post made whenever the Sister Location trailer released, with the biggest piece of evidence being the trailer states, "Deep below ground." That's it. Henry is Phone Guy. Yeah, there is really no evidence here, and the people who try to make sense of it are really stretching it. Shadow Victim. This theory states that the bite victim of 83 is Shadow Freddy. This theory stems from some FNAF world ending, but it's pretty unlikely. Scraptrap's design is a retcon. In the previously mentioned Dawko interview with Scott Cawthon, Dawko asked him about Scraptrap and why his design was different from Springtrap. Scott didn't answer because it was lore related, but fans have theorized it was a retcon, but we don't have any concrete evidence. FNAF 4 takes place in 1987. Yeah, this theory entirely comes from whenever the game first released, and people saw the crying child get bit, and also Markiplier's famous clip of him saying,
"Was that the bite of 87?
"The nightmare animatronics are real." I can only assume that people thought the nightmare animatronics were real before the theories about the game started to form. Vanny and Vanessa are the same person. Well, there are pieces of evidence that suggest that Vanessa and Vanny are the same person. It's that goddamn ending where Vanessa looks down at Gregory looking at Vanny without the mask on, so it's pretty ambiguous. Ennard is a virus. Yeah, I have no clue where this originated from, but I can assume it was from the teaser image of Ennard, which had the text, "There is a little of me in every body." And that wraps up this layer, which brings us to Layer 3 is described as some classic theories from the 2014 to early 2015 days, aka the time FNAF 3 was released. Most of these theories have since been debunked, with an exception of a select few. Foxy, Freddy, Golden Freddy did the bite of 87. These are all separate entries, so I'll lump them all into one, and go over the evidence at the time that made people think that they caused the bite. For Foxy, his seemingly unhinged jaw in FNAF 1 and his FNAF 2 jump scare caused the community to think that he was a possible culprit for the bite of 87. For Freddy's case, people assumed that on his render there was a faint handprint on the right side of his face, so people assumed the bite victim was holding him back. And for the case of Golden Freddy, I can assume that it was again the FNAF 4 cutscene of the crying child being bit, which people understandably assumed was the bite of 87. Phone Guy is the purple guy. Now this was a popular theory, mostly being held up by MatPat's two-part theory videos. It had some really compelling evidence at the time, but now we know that Phone Guy was just a regular employee of the franchise. Freddy is a girl. The community assumed the child who got stuffed into the Freddy animatronic in FNAF 1 was a female because of the fact Freddy hides in the girl's restroom back in FNAF 1, and that his laugh is a slowed down version of a girl's laughter. Many years later, this was obviously debunked. Golden Freddy was the suit used by Purple Guy during the missing children's incident. During night 6 of FNAF 2, Phone Guy said that someone used a spare yellow suit in the back room, which at the time, everyone assumed to be Golden Freddy, but when FNAF 3 came out, that was quickly debunked. Phone Guy is inside Chica. Now I had never heard of this theory because it sounds kinda stupid, but apparently the evidence for this is that you could see extra teeth inside her mouth, which was her endoskeleton. Yeah, this one is pretty stupid. The endoskeleton in FNAF 2 waits for you to die so it can crawl into this suit?
No!
Fredbear in FNAF 3. I assume this is referring to the secret minigame in FNAF 3 where we play as Fredbear. Springtrap builds a hybrid animatronic. This is probably referring to that one FNAF 3 teaser image where we see a box of animatronic parts, and when brightening the image, you can see Springtrap in the darkness. But I couldn't find any theories that people made regarding Springtrap actually building a hybrid. Well, the only news about being a hybrid is of course the theories of Springtrap himself being a hybrid of the previous animatronics. The animatronics are afraid of you. Again, I couldn't find anybody discussing this theory anywhere. I'm guessing it stems from way back when there were small theories suggesting you play as the killer in FNAF 1. The FNAF 2 animatronics yell freedom. Now this is a classic theory. Back when the FNAF 2 trailer dropped, at the end of it, Foxy jump scares you and we hear the FNAF 2 jump scare sound for the first time, and people started to say that where the sound cuts off in the trailer kinda sounds like the word freedom. Take a listen. Yeah, it kinda sounds like it, but it obviously isn't what they're saying. It's just your brain playing tricks on you. Your brain is always looking for recognizable patterns in things, so if you're told that they're yelling freedom, that's what your brain's going to hear, when in reality it's just a scream. FNAF 1 takes place in 1992. This entry is sorta correct because we don't know exactly when FNAF 1 takes place, but from MatPat's first FNAF theory, he did some minimum wage calculations and based on those, he concluded that FNAF 1 takes place somewhere between 1991 and 1993. Purple Guy and Pink Guy are different people. Another classic. Whenever you die in FNAF 2, there was a rare death minigame you could play, and the purple guy appeared in multiple of them, but because they were slightly different colors than two separate ones, the community assumed they were different people, which we now know isn't the case. The Color Brothers theory. There was a theory created by the YouTuber BlackFootFerret, and it's a theory that goes very in-depth about the two separate purple guys as previously mentioned. It's a super well-formulated theory with a lot of evidence, but of course that evidence was limited at the time and very much debunked. Still, it's a very compelling and well-made video, so I'll leave a link in the description so you can watch it yourself if you'd like. And that marks the end of this layer. Now we head to this layer is described to be home to some more obscure theories that are from the very early days of mid to late 2014, and before the release of FNAF 3. Some of these may seem reasonable enough, while others are more out there in terms of plausibility. Balloon Boy is a hallucination. The evidence supporting this theory is that BB in FNAF 2 is never mentioned by Phone Guy. He's the only animatronic that doesn't attack you, and you're able to hear him from anywhere in the building whenever he moves. A pretty reasonable theory. Freddy in FNAF 1 learns and adapts from the player's behavior. I could not find any evidence supporting this theory, plus it's just straight up wrong. Go check out TechRule's video to see how FNAF 1's AI actually works. The owner of Fazbear's was named Freddy. Again, I couldn't find any evidence about this one, and of course now we know it was Henry and William that started Fazbear's. Mike Kill All. This was a pretty popular theory back in the day. In the start of FNAF 2's trailer, you hear children singing the London Bridge nursery rhyme, and when reversed, people suspected that it was saying Mike Kill All. Take a listen. Similar to the FNAF 2 jumpscare saying freedom, it's just your brain making you think it's saying Mike Kill All. The owner of Fazbear died and now haunts the restaurant. Again, couldn't find any evidence for this. Freddy could pass through the door. This was a misconception of how Freddy's AI worked back in FNAF 1. If Freddy was at camera 4B, looking at another camera while the right door was open could allow him to get inside your office, which meant even if the door was closed he could still jumpscare you, which led players to believe that Freddy could simply bend the laws of physics to just go through the door when it's closed. The cupcake is its own animatronic. Disregarding the movie, I assumed people thought that Chica's cupcake was its own animatronic since she seemingly loses it whenever she's not on stage. It's Been So Long is canon to the games. It's Been So Long is a fan-made FNAF 2 song created by the Living Tombstone, and it gained a lot of traction. The song's lyrics was suggesting some story happening which was very different from the FNAF 1 song, and some people theorized that Scott himself was in on it and assisting with the story aspect, and it was further supported by Scott saying on record that It's Been So Long was his favorite fan-made FNAF song, but of course the song isn't actually canon. Foxy is a good guy. Man, this is an old one. In FNAF 1, Foxy's jumpscare wasn't as aggressive and violent as the others. He just steps into the office. People then threw around rumors that Foxy was just coming in to check on you, and then giving you a game over anyways. The animatronics are protecting Balloon Boy. Yeah, this one just makes no sense. There's no evidence that I could find that supported this. Five Nights at Freddy's parallels real events that happened at Chuck E. Cheese. In MatPat's first FNAF game theory video, he went over a story that eerily parallels the setting and situation of FNAF 1, where in late 1993, a teenager named Nathan Dunlap, a former employee of Chuck E. Cheese, went back to the old location he worked at, hid in the bathroom until close, and then proceeded to kill the 5 employees that were in the building. This was a real event that happened, and that MatPat goes into detail in his first FNAF theory video. You play as investigators. Yet another entry that I couldn't find evidence for. Doesn't matter though, because we know it just isn't true. Jeremy Fitzgerald is the purple guy. The only evidence supporting this entry is this Steam discussion post from 2015. It makes some compelling points, but it's obviously false. Purple guy is inside Shadow Freddy. What? Phone guy faked his death. Finally, a popular theory that somewhat makes sense in this layer. The leading arguments for this theory is that Phone Guy in FNAF 1's Night 4 phone call is strangely calm whenever there is an animatronic literally banging on the door and when he is literally about to die. But yeah, he did. And finally, we have arrived at the final layer. The last layer is described as the most complex theories proposed by fans over the years, some that are so crazy that they might actually be true. ANDIEMATRONIC's 2017 full timeline. ANDIEMATRONIC is a FNAF YouTuber where in 2017, she made a timeline video that covered all the games up to Sister Location. And sure, there were some details that were wrong, but overall the timeline was fairly accurate compared to what we know now. It's a very good video that I recommend you go watch. The Afton Family Horcruxes. The Afton Family Horcruxes is a series of videos by the returning BlackFootFerret. The videos in question go very, very, very in depth about the story of the FNAF games and books. Similar to ANDIEMATRONIC, these videos, although partly inaccurate, are a very interesting watch. It's neat to see the different perspectives of the story from across the FNAF community at the time. FNAF 3 is the result of a time paradox. As we know, FNAF 3 is the only game in the series, before Security Breach, that had multiple endings, and that the bad ending is the canon one, but some people from the community have theorized that the good ending could also be canon, but that wouldn't make sense. Because in the good ending, Golden Freddy's spirit moves on, so how could he then torture William in Ultimate Custom Night? I don't know, maybe I misinterpreted the entry. All the books are canon. Yes and no. Well, yes, the books parallel and support theories that stem from the games. The games and the books do not directly intertwine chronologically. They're separate canons. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was real. Now, of course, an entry like this would be the last one. And unfortunately, this one is complete bogus. I can only assume it was when this fake image of a real Freddy Fazbear's Pizza building was being spread within the community, or the fact that the numbers from a teaser image source code coincidentally led to a pizzeria in real life, which then led fans to actually call the place, and then caused Scott himself to make a Reddit account asking fans to stop. Well, there you have it. That concludes the Five Nights at Freddy's Fan Theory Iceberg. It was pretty fun researching and seeing discussions about theories from so many years ago, and about how wrong we all were. I hope you all enjoyed my first Iceberg video, and if this video does well, I might do another Iceberg video on a different hyperfixation of mine. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.